first thing that drew me to Sword of the Vagrant was just how similar it seemed to the likes of Odin's Sphere and Dragon's Crown, right down to its visual makeup, and whilst there are some huge differences when it comes to the gameplay itself, it ends up feeling like a very similar experience. It follows the journey of Vivian, a mercenary known in the world as a rune warden, who's out to uncover the truth about her missing father and her family's mysterious legacy. After finding herself shipwrecked on a mysterious island, it's not long until she comes into contact with a witch who tasks her with seeking out various magical artifacts, and this is where the game kicks off. In terms of its gameplay, it's essentially a hack and slasher that comes along with a healthy dose of RPG mechanics and sees you having to explore the vast island from a side-scrolling view. The combat is the real highlight, and you've got several attacks that allow you to perform a low to high hit as well as a special move that form the foundation of the pretty extensive combo system that can see you dealing out heaps of damage against the near 80 different enemy types in the game. Boss fights, of which there are over 10, are a real standout as well, with hulking monsters that require you to learn their patterns and exploit their weaknesses by taking advantage of one of the many different skills you'll be learning along the way. Speaking of progression, as you take enemies down, you'll be earning yourself mana, which is used to unlock nodes on the skill tree system, and thanks to the freedom this approach offers, you're able to craft Vivian in any way you see fit, and guide her on a path that's best suited to your style of play. May that be either more aggressive or defensive, there's plenty of options that accommodate each approach. Ultimately, it ends up coming across as a love letter to Vanillaware's classic action RPGs, so for anyone fond of them, Sword of the Vagrant is well worth picking up. The Switch is home to a huge selection of racing games, with all-time classics like Burnout Paradise and Mario Kart, but one of my favourites that doesn't really get talked about too often has to be Victory Heat Rally. It reminds me a lot of the old Cora Q games, right down to its presentation with its cel-shaded visuals and the playful nature of the racing itself. Like many other races, there's a few different modes to hop into, with the championship offering the real meat of the experience that sees you taking part in a series of races where you're free to choose from a range of characters that all have their own attributes, may that be better handling or higher amounts of speed, and before each race you get to fine tune your car with different types of tyres and suspension that all have a noticeable difference once you're out on the track. Now the main goal is to unlock new characters that become available to race in special one-on-one events, with 9 of them in total, but to mix it up even further, you're often given side objectives to complete, such as knocking down cones, passing through gates, or nailing drift lines around corners. And speaking of drifting, this is at the core of the racing, with it being your main way to get around each track as quickly as you can. A lot like Mario Kart, a successful drift is followed by a short speed boost, so performing one as often as you can soon becomes the best way to earn first place. In terms of replayability, you've got the unlockable characters to earn, as well as new paint jobs and parts that give you an incentive to work through the championship as each racer, and with just how enjoyable the gameplay is, with it being smooth and responsive, it ends up being a lot of fun to play through, so much so that I found myself going back to it quite often just to fit in a race when I had some spare time. Of course, it's nowhere near the best racing game on the Switch, but with it being so cheap and enjoyable, it's well worth giving a go. I've always been a huge fan of tactical RPGs, and I've recently gone searching through some of the more lesser known gems to try out, and God Wars is definitely up there with some of the best of its kind. It sees you being transported to the land of Mizuho, that's all heavily influenced by Japanese mythology and folklore, and throws you into the role of a princess known as Kaguya, who after being imprisoned as a potential sacrifice for the gods, is broken out by her childhood friends, who all go on to try to get to the bottom of the evil that's plaguing the land. For anyone interested in Japanese culture, this is definitely a game for you, as all of its elements work to create a culturally rich backdrop for the story to play out in, and on the gameplay front it's just as enjoyable, which ends up feeling a lot like Final Fantasy Tactics, with each of the battles unfolding on an isometric grid-based map, where positioning, elevation and your choices play vital roles in each fight. What helps elevate this sense of strategy even further is the reliance on different jobs for your team, that consists of just over 14 characters with over 30 job classes, ranging from warriors and archers to mages and healers, and when coupled with the nearly 400 different skills that can be learned, there ends up being a lot to play around with, letting you craft a party that plays into your strengths and playstyle. due to the portable nature of the Switch, God Wars is one of the best games to have with you on the go, with the battles lasting between 15 to 30 minutes, allowing you to pick it up and play in short bursts, and thanks to the sheer depth of the systems in place, there's plenty of replayability to be had as well. For fans of the likes of Disgaea and Tactics Ogre, God Wars ends up being a real must-have, with plenty to dive into for both newcomers and veterans alike. Star Renegades is a game that really surprised me. I hadn't heard of it before and saw it going for cheap on the shop, so decided to give it a go on its art style alone, and it's quickly become one of my favourite turn-based RPGs to play on the Switch. It puts you into the shoes of Wynn, a rebel leader who's taken up the cause of stopping a dimension-hopping evil empire who are hell-bent on dominating each and every version of reality. Even though the premise is pretty interesting, the real heart of the game lies within the reactive time battle system that shares a lot in common with the likes of Grandia. Each of the battles unfold on a 60-second timeline displayed at the top of the screen, showing when each character and enemy can act. It turns each encounter into a tactical puzzle of its own, where your timing is just as important as how powerful your attacks are, and if you land an attack just before an enemy's turn, you'll trigger a critical hit, dealing a lot more damage and sending them back down the timeline. Each of your party members have a unique moveset tied to their class, with actions categorized as light, normal, heavy or special, with many of them varying in the time that it takes to pull them off, so it's a good idea to take this into consideration when attacking. Between the battles, you get to explore procedurally generated maps, collecting resources like DNA, tech points and credits, which all help to fuel the game's progression systems, allowing you to unlock new characters, equip gear and purchase permanent upgrades that carry across the different dimensions, allowing you to craft your team in any way you see fit. Overall, Star Renegades is a really solid RPG, and for any fans of Octopath Traveler or Grandia, it's definitely worth a playthrough, with it offering a challenging yet accessible experience that you'll likely find hard to put down. Gaiden takes the best aspects of Mega Man and Ninja Gaiden and successfully blends them together in what has to be one of the best platformers that hardly anyone knows about. It sees you taking up the role of two ninja robots who have to hunt down and retrieve several golden skulls that were stolen by a villainous gang. As with most platformers, the story is deliberately light, and instead it's the gameplay that does the heavy lifting, with it all being focused on its fast-paced platforming that demands a lot of precision and skill to master. You've got just over 7 levels to work through, each with a boss waiting for you at the end, and while it may sound a bit on the short side, the sheer amount of challenge makes up for it. In terms of the actual gameplay, both of the ninjas control extremely well, and come along with a decent moveset to help you navigate each stage. You've got a double jump, the ability to glide over large gaps, and are also able to cling onto the walls, which all come into play. But equally as important is the range of options you've got when it comes to dealing with the cast of enemies that occupy each level as well. From shurikens to missiles and boomerangs, you've always got a fighting chance, with the game striking a balance where trial and error feels fair and encourages you to keep moving forward. The upgrade system is a welcome addition as well, and upon completing each level you'll be given a medal from bronze to gold, which count as points to spend on temporary power-ups or permanent enhancements, from increased health at the start of each run to being able to unlock a triple jump that really comes in handy. One of the standout features though is the ability to play the entire game in local co-op, and it feels like it was designed with this in mind, as it ends up being one of the best ways to experience it, and with it being so cheap to pick up, there's no reason not to give Gaiden a try. I've always been fond of Level 5's work when it comes to RPGs, may that be Ni no Kuni or Rogue Galaxy, but Megaton Musashi took me completely by surprise. I wasn't even aware of it until a viewer suggested it in a previous video, and with its blend of mech combat and deep customization, it seemed like something right up my street, and it didn't fail to impress. The story alone is really intriguing and follows a boy known as Yamato who soon comes to realize the world he lives in isn't real, and instead is being taken over by aliens, with the remnants of humanity being forced to live in shelters, with their entire memories having been erased. As Yamamoto's family's death begin to slowly resurface in his mind, he's recruited by a secret organization to pilot a mech known as a Rogue and take the fight to the aliens in the hopes of reclaiming the Earth. For as good as the story ends up being, the combat is what truly shines, that sees you hacking and slashing away at enemies with a wide range of abilities. You've got several melee attacks, may that be a sword, spear or hammer, as well as long range moves that utilize utilize your gun or beam rifle, and in terms of defense you've got a pretty handy dodge, guard and the ability to jump that'll get you out of a tight spot in no time. On top of this you can equip up to 4 special attacks that consume a resource known as TP and unleash devastating attacks such as a cannon beam that all make short work of the enemies. As I mentioned earlier, customization is also a huge part of the game, and here you're free to tinker with your mech and equip a huge amount of different parts with nigh on endless possibilities that the game continually deals out over the course of the story. For fans of mech anime, action RPGs or level 5's incredible storytelling, Megaton Musashi is deserving of a spot in your collection as well. I've always been drawn to the sheer chaos that comes along with shooters, and the Switch isn't without its fair share of different experiences to jump into, but one that I feel didn't get the fanfare it deserved was Ghostblade HD. As is common with many of its kind, the story is pretty bare bones, and amounts to nothing more than you having to pilot a ship in order to take down a rogue AI known as Shira that was designed to protect the colonies of Mars but has since gone haywire. You get to choose from one of 3 different pilots who each have their own ship that all behave a bit differently. You've got one that's quite weak but fast, another that's fairly balanced, and finally one that's slow but incredibly powerful. Thanks to these choices, you can choose one depending on how you personally approach these types of games, which opens up a few different ways to play it, as each of the ships also have their own unique attack patterns as well, with the ability to switch between a spread shot for clearing waves of smaller enemies and a focus beam for dealing heavy damage. The game throws an insane array of enemy ships, drones and bosses at you, each unleashing their own bullet patterns that range from sprawling waves to dense laser-filled mazes, demanding that you've got a grip on the controls as you have to weave in and out of danger to land your shots. One big draw of shooters though are the scoring systems, and here in Ghostblade it manages to add a lot of depth to the gameplay. Your score is influenced by several different factors, such as collecting stars dropped by enemies, maintaining a combo by quickly destroying foes, to completing stages quickly and finishing with your lives intact. It essentially transforms each run into a puzzle as you work towards finding the best paths where surviving isn't the only goal, but perfecting your performance on each stage as well. While it's nothing that's truly groundbreaking, Ghostblade ends up being something that's hard not to love. God of Protectors is the spiritual successor to the 3DS game that started out on the 360, where it was then known as Protect Me Knight. It's essentially a game that mixes elements from tower defense and action RPGs, as well as beat 'em up mechanics, into something entirely unique. The premise sees you travelling to the world of Magicadia, where a dark prophecy threatens the end of all video games, and your castle is transformed into a tank on rails where you've got to journey the kingdom in the hopes of ridding it of the evil once and for all. Now the gameplay is just as bizarre as the setup, and sees you controlling a team of 3 different characters from a range of different classes, from fighters to mages and archers that all come along with their own weapons and playstyles. This diversity lets you tailor your team to your preferred strategy, and whether you want to focus on brute force, defensive setups, or a more balanced approach, it allows for a wide range of different approaches that sees you being able to experiment and find a way to succeed. Now your main objective is to protect a princess inside of the rolling castle as it makes its way towards another castle on the map to destroy it. Each of the maps have different tracks for the castle to move on, which often feature branching paths or obstacles that you'll have to deal with, so you'll find yourself constantly on the move, managing barriers, turrets and your character's positions whilst battling the enemies as well. It does become quite chaotic at points, but therein lies the game's fun factor, and the constant feeling of having to stay on your toes is what permeates throughout the entire experience. As you progress, your characters will slowly evolve with new abilities that are perfect for controlling the crowds of enemies, and with so many of them available, it always feels like the game is providing new ways to form different strategies. If you're fond of games with a retro touch, then God of Protectors will be an essential addition to your collection. Beat-em-ups have long been one of my favourite genres, going all the way back to the days of the 16-bit era with the likes of Final Fight and Streets of Rage. Fast forward to now and there's still great examples that carry on their DNA, with Fight and Rage capturing the nostalgic feeling while infusing it with a more modern take and systems that make it a real standout. It all takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where humans have become enslaved by mutant overlords following a cataclysmic event. As with many beat-em-ups, you get the choice of several characters and you've you've got Gal, Ricardo and Norris who all band together to fight back against their oppressors. As you would guess, they all have their own traits and fighting styles, with Gal being a balanced fighter with quick combos, Ricardo an absolute powerhouse with a range of different grabs, and finally Norris being the faster of the three who excels at chaining attacks and dodging. They all share a basic moveset though, with light and heavy attacks, jumps, grabs and special moves, which all work together to offer a bit of variety to the overall gameplay. The special attack system is quite clever and gives you the option to unleash powerful moves at the cost of health, or wait for your SP gauge to fill for a free high damage attack. This mechanic adds a nice sense of risk versus reward to the combat itself, but what I really enjoyed when it came to the fighting was the parry system, and timing a parry correctly not only negates the enemy's attack but also refills your SP gauge, rewarding skillful play and playing straight back into the special moves, creating a sort of loop during each fight that keeps you going, building combos and keeping up the pressure. When it comes down to it, Fighting Rage is a triumph of blending the old with the new. With its deep combat and its pixel perfect visuals, it's truly something not to miss. CyberConnect 2 have long been known for their mastery of the RPG genre, from the dot hack games to Solar to Robo, but one series that never seems to get the recognition it deserves is Melodies of Steel. Set in a world populated by anthropomorphic dogs and cats, it follows a group of children whose village is destroyed by an empire that sees them ending up taking refuge in a massive ancient tank known as the Tyrannus, which they use to move around the world and more importantly to battle. At its core, it all revolves around a timeline-based system which governs the flow of battles with a turn-based structure. Displayed at the top of the screen, the timeline shows the order in which characters and enemies can act, determined by their speed stats and the actions they select, with your tank being broken up into 3 separate sections. You've got your machine gun, grenade launcher and cannon, which are all manned by separate teams. Each action you take varies in how long it takes to execute, with faster moves like a machine gun burst acting sooner but dealing less damage, while slower, heavy-hitting cannon shots taking a lot longer to fire. A cool inclusion is something known as the Soul Cannon that offers a desperate last resort against some of the game's tougher enemies, with its use sacrificing a member of your party that is permanently lost, affecting both gameplay as well as the story itself. One of the game's greatest strengths though are its visuals that blend both 2D and 3D aspects perfectly into a sort of storybook aesthetic, but it's the steampunk designs of the tank and enemies that really steal the show, giving the game a pretty unique look that it can call its own. With 3 games in the series, it's a great franchise to give a go, and while the future entries are better, the first game offers up the perfect jumping on point. Well, that does it for today's video. Keep an eye out for part 2 as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to get notified about new videos that release every Monday and Thursday. You can follow me on all of the socials which are linked below to stay up to date, and also join my growing community on Discord to meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters Rhino, Skilljim, Shuden, Richard, Amy, Daniel, Dio, Omar, Strider, Pierre, Carl, Awesome Jacket Dude, Affinium Mind, Maximus, Scott, Alfred, Terry, Ryan, Alex, GameCube Galaxy, Curse Salaryman, Fake and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining my Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find all of these links down below. As always, thanks for taking the time to check the video out. I'll catch you next time.